So the next photo I want to walk you through with is something I absolutely love as a photographer. It's something I share a lot of and I get a lot of comments on how I edit it. So I love backlit scenes. If you have a really cool scene going on and the sun is setting and it's nice and low, I'll talk you through more how I get these shots in the field further on in more videos, but for now, let's talk about the editing. So I love just watching the scene and the light hitting right behind, and I think with editing you can really bring out that beautiful hazy kind of glowy look, which kind of gives that really dreamy kind of a sense of awe about the whole scene. And that's the beauty of backlight, and you can really accentuate with that with editing. So let's walk through a photo I'm proud of. That's pretty decent backlit scene, and I'll show you how you can really bring out those shots in editing.
Okay, so here we have a bright and glowy scene. It's fairly backlit, as you can see from the shadow, slightly side lit backlit, but it's such a bright, hazy, glowy kind of scene, like on this beautiful early morning in Vietnam. I think it's going to create the perfect kind of scenario, so I can show you how I get this kind of dreamy effect in the photos. So what I was looking for here, obviously, you've got a beautiful subject, um, like a really cool sort of iconic sort of feature with the conical hat and in Vietnam and fishing, pulling a rope. The story's kind of here, like what is she pulling? Is there something going on, or or what's going on here? And of course, we've got the mountains in the background to add to the scene, the reflection of the wet sand, and the shadow as well. So you've got these two sort of layers kind of going. And then, of course, this beautiful glowy light coming through. So it's just showing this beautiful morning, early scene of this lady working hard, working along the beach in Da Nang in Vietnam. So I think it's a really cool scene to go with, and definitely if we can add to this glow, I think that's going to be a really cool thing. So let's jump into it, and I'll show you how I go about it. I think right now it's so bright already. Probably just want to drop it a touch. Normally by default, I had a bit of contrast just to add to the scene. And straight away, I want to drop these highlights because we can see on if we press J, it will show us where we're clipping, which means that there's perfect whites, which we don't want because that's so overbearing and it's too much to take in. It's too much to look at. So if we drop the highlights, we're kind of getting slightly more towards that. You'll see more whites are now going towards the midtones. And as a default, I tend to up the shadows a little bit just to bring back the details and add more of a dynamic range to the photo. And now here we can help even out those whites again. So I'm going to drop the whites in this until we see it not clipping anymore. So now we have a bit more of an even photo. So now it's not too harsh. So we can see from the difference of a press backspace. Got this blown out area, but now you've got the details back in the scene. Of course, we're going to take out more with the masks in a minute, but you'll see how that kind of you can see how it's a bit more pleasant to look at. You've got more detail in the photo. Okay, so now to start on this dreamy look. The essence of this is taking away all the sharp edges that you don't need, that you don't want, and just adding it into a softer kind of realm. So here we got texture, and if you add more, you're going to get all the edges nice and sharp. And if you drop it to 20, 30, you're just going to have more softness and glow. And the same with the clarity, you can see how this really kind of starts to bring it in. So here you can kind of add a lot more depth, which could be really useful for this photo actually. So I'm going to drop it a little bit to start off with. I think the masking is really where we're going to use the declarity, maybe up dehaze just a couple just add to this scene. Vibrant saturation I normally leave until later on if it needs be. And the curve is important. It's where we get our contrast and where we can soften out those harsher blacks. Pretty much always I'll add an S curve. Depending on the scene depends on how much. Definitely drop those whites so you can soften that. And now we're starting to get the look that we want, I think. And the midtones sometimes you want to play with just a little bit as well. Okay, so we're pretty bright here, so we just want to be a bit more careful with the whites. Okay, moving on. Hues, don't think there's any reds in this scene. Oranges for sure in the sand. The sand you definitely don't really want to go too green. Not too red, so I think if anything, just keep it in the middle, around the middle. Yellows, of course, is going to be in the sand also, and it's going to have the same effect. Don't want to be too green or too red. So I think really we're better off maybe just going slightly towards the greens, getting away from that reddy color in there. Is more just feeling it out and seeing what suits you for this particular area, really. Everyone's got their own style. Everyone likes their own colors to saturate different colors to desaturate. It really depends what you want. I will go through some moody edits as well and stuff to show you, so you'll see how you can vary those to get the look that you want. The blues are definitely in here. You can definitely see that in the mountains. Normally, I like to take it away from the purple area because I think that's quite unattractive. So I like to drop it maybe 5 to 10 just to kind of give it I guess, a bit of a warmer feel. And no magentas, purples. There's a little bit you can see in the waves here, and that can be quite unattractive if you have too much purple on there. So I think blues are more suited toward it. So if anything, we're going to drop it, but we're going to desaturate in a second. Reds, no reds. And now in the sand, I think it's kind of popping a little bit if we have the orange. Don't think we want it to stand out too much. So if anything, just going to decrease just a touch. And the yellows is the same, but I like how the yellows are a lot more subtle in the sand there. It's kind of warmer and nicer. So I'm going to up this and then drop the orange because the orange is the harsh and ugly sort of looking color to it. And the yellows just add a nice bit of warmth. So I think that's a pleasant way to go about it. Greens, no greens. Aquas. There's not too many aquas, but I think there's a bit in the sea, and I think if we decrease it, it's just going to clean it up. And now in the mountains, we're going to have all these blues. And definitely don't want to oversaturate that. So I think, if anything, we're better off just desaturating a touch. And I think soon we want to darken it too. Not many purples. If anything, it's in the water, which is quite nice if, with the white water. Seems to be kind of just looking a bit more brighter and glowy here when it's lower. Okay, and now in the luminance reds, you can see definitely in the water there, which is strange. I didn't realize there was some. I think I'm just going to leave that alone, not do too much with it. Okay, now in the sand, we have all this, the orange. And now it's basically dancing between the orange and the yellow to get the look you want here. I think something like that. No greens, not many aquas. Like I said in the previous video, playing around with the luminance is where you can really see what colors are in your photo. So if you want to understand what to play with, what's playing in your photo, go straight to the luminance and play with the sliders, and it will very quickly show you what's in there, as you can see. Right, so now we can add so much more depth into the scene by darkening these mountains, as you see. It really brings the scene into play, helps separate the mountains from the person, from the sky, and that adds so many more layers to the photo, hence adding more depth. So I think it's quite important that we drop the luminance on this a little bit. The purples, it's only really affecting that white water here, and I think I like the glow that comes off the white water, which definitely adds that glowy feel that we want from this photo. And the purples, got to be really careful with this. I think that the magentas, again, it's same as the reds, it's in that bright spot, which you just do not want to oversaturate. So I think just leave those alone. As standard for the color grading, I do like to have the slightly sort of bluey greens in the shadows, just because it kind of it adds to this coolness of the scene. And normally I would like to add a little bit of orange to the highlights, but in this case, I think because it's quite a cool like morning scene, maybe it'd even look better if it had some blues. For me, I think I'm just going to play around with this just a touch until I'm happy. Yeah, I think that's so much better than going into oranges where it kind of just doesn't clean it up just as much. And of course, we can change the colors in the masking in a minute anyway. So yeah, cool. I like that scene. Sharpening, I showed you already. If you hold Alt and you go along the masking, we just want to mask out just the bits you want. So that'll be the edges of the water, the person, of course, and the tip of the mountain. So just something like that. And I won't play around with that too much because you can do it later in other programs. Noise reduction, again, it softens the area a bit if I show you, if I bring it across. But there's not much noise in the scene anyway, so I won't worry about it, but just up a touch. Profile corrections, chromatic aberration, you definitely want to remove that pretty much always, especially for the bright scenes. Sometimes along the edges of buildings and stuff, you can see like these purpley, yellowy, greeny, blue sort of like lines all the way along, which just really, you don't notice sometimes, but if you're a photographer, you probably see it most of the time. So it's good just to check that, just to use the software to help get rid of those kind of lines. Actually, maybe along here you might have been able to see. Yeah, not really. But anyway, check it. It's useful to have. It doesn't do any bad to the photo, but normally cleans up any of the bad bits. Aspect ratio, I showed you before, it helps kind of lengthen the height of the scene. I think adding a bit more emphasis onto this lady here working is quite good, so we can make her taller, make the mountains bigger, and bring a bit more to the sea. So I think just bringing up the aspect just like 15 to 20 or something is probably quite a good way to go. So now, of course, we see these white bars, so we need to change that in the crop, which is pressing R. Um, so I'm going to bring it in, but also something you really need to be careful with the crop. You need to make sure this horizon level is always straight. Now this is the side of the coast, so I think it's not perfect as it is. But if we just make sure it's lined up nicely, and then take up these bars, try and get the subject as kind of central as you can in this case. There's a lot of different compositional elements you might want to use. And I'm going to stick her feet on the rule of thirds, just so it kind of makes everything nice and neat and seem like it's in the right place. But also make sure you're not cropping off any of that shadow in the corner here. But I think that's looking pretty good. Pretty level. Try shadows in there. Okay, and no bars, and we have a better image now. Okay, cool. Moving on. Vignette. As always, you can do more in the edit, but sometimes it just helps you to kind of see how the image progresses by doing it a bit now. Greens or purples. Sometimes you might want to play with this just to see what you like. I think in this case, I think adding a little bit of purple into the shadows just helps bring out those blues a bit more, gives it that cooler sort of scene. And again, just move up and down with the primary colors just to see how it affects the scene. Normally between -10 and +10 is enough. So just have a look. I think for me, really it could go either way. I think I'm just going to leave that in the middle because it doesn't really make a difference. And the greens. Yeah, so I don't like in the sand how it's getting this sickly yellowy kind of look, greeny yellow. So I think if anything, probably wants to go up just a touch, just to get away from that. And normally this is the most complicated one, the blue primary. Sometimes it gives some really weird colors. So often you can see like you get on these weird reds, and then it can go to these sickly greens very, very quickly. So more often than not, I just like to leave this one alone. It can be useful, but sometimes not. Great, so those are the basics. And if I press backslash, you can see where we've come from. So really, all that we've done so far is just adjust the colors to more what we want. So we take those blues more to the greeny sort of side, and just make the yellows a little bit warmer. And of course, with the declarity and detexture, we've already softened the image so much to add to it. I think already I can see that maybe we want to bring those shadows back a bit, just because on the person that's brighter, and now we've taken away from that beautiful glow. Okay, cool. So now let's go into the masking, which is the most important part of any image, really. So we start with a gradient mask, which is pressing M on the shortcut. And as always, I love to decrease the exposure and bring back a little bit of whites just to keep that sort of contrast in the scene. And that helps draw the eye away from here and bringing the eye straight more to the scene. So it kind of leads the eye more to where you want it to go. And again, probably I'll do the similar thing into the sky because the mountain is quite beautiful in there, and there's a lot of sort of clouds and details in here. So it'd be a shame if we kind of allow that to go missing. Now I can see already how it's kind of a bit too dark in this left-hand side. So I'm going to use a gradient again just to brighten up that and bring back those details. I think something like that. Great. And now here we go. Here's where we can really get this glow into the scene. So I've just made a radiant filter with the Shift M, and I'm going to bring it across probably most of the sort of main part of the scene, the sky, and coming in. And I'm bringing exposure as much as feels comfortable. You can really overdo it with this. Sometimes the contrast can help bring it back a bit by bringing back the darks and just not making it so overbearing. But yeah, bring it up as much as you can get away with. Normally, a little bit of warmth helps to bring in that sunlight, that warm, sunny feel, and countering it with a little bit of purple just helps to kind of even out those colors, I find. And now, here we go. Here's where you get your dreaminess. You can really just drop the clarity almost to 100 if you want to sometimes. And you can see you go from this really harsh kind of look right into this dreamy glow that comes right through. And that's kind of the essence of a lot of the photos I do. A lot of people wonder how I get the water to look like clean and clear and glowy. And I think honestly, 80% of it is just dropping clarity, using masks and dropping clarity over the areas you want it to, and then bringing the clarity back in where you want it to. Okay, and also dehaze, because dehaze is where you can bring in that kind of glow all the way through the scene. It really brings that hazy light through the scene. Now I'm going to add another mask, just a smaller one that kind of directs you more to the subject. And here, just being careful that you're not blowing out these bright highlights that are right in the edge, or making them too distracting. So I would just, more than anything, just increase the exposure, just to kind of give that glow across the water, leading towards the subject. Brilliant. Okay, so already you can see just from those few masks, we've made it such a better glowy kind of scene. And something that we can do here, it's important, we've realized that we've done a mask, and using the red here, if we press O, we can see that it covers all of this area. So we want the area to be glowy, but we need our subject to pop. So that means we don't want it all to be glowy. So we can either use a mask and brush out by using the minus section here, or we can select subject. Now there's a brilliant mask in Lightroom that allows you to do that. So if we just wait a second. Okay, and if you press O, you can see where it's masked. And it's actually done a really good job. If you zoom in, you can see more. It's obviously missed out some bits, so if you want, you can do a minus brush. But I'm not going to waste your time by going too much into all of this, but I'll show you what you can do. And if you auto mask, then it makes this selection a lot cleaner. I'm just going to brush along just to clean up the edge. Okay, and zoom out. Just pressing Z, press O again to get rid of the reds. And now I definitely think we want to brighten up the subject. Normally, the brightest part of the photo is the thing that pops the most. So you want to really think about just adding light to these places where you can, if possible. Normally, adding to the shadows can help bring up more of the subject and more of the details in the subject, making it more interesting. So now she's really popping already. And the last thing to really do to bring back that clarity that we took away with that mask. Here's how you can really make it just really pop from the scene. Okay, I think now because the water behind is so cool, something that we can do here to also help the subject pop is to make it warm. So instead of light contrast, we add this color contrast. If you put warmer in front of cooler subjects, that's gonna make it pop out from the scene, and it's gonna make it more add more depth. So yeah, as you can see, I've warmed up now this subject just a tiny bit, just by 5, and already it's just made her pop away from that blue in the scene. Okay, so now another mask. Again, all we're trying to do now is just add more depth to the scene. We have this glow, and we just want to make the subject pop, all the lines pop towards it, and add all the layers that we really want to add to the photo. So now I'm going to darken the shadows, probably down 20 on the exposure, up 5 on contrast, and definitely add a little bit of clarity in there too. You want auto mask on, so you're following the lines, and the flow to 50, and the feather to 50-ish. Just so it's not too overbearing. Just following along the shadow and the reflection. Okay, and now we're bringing that mountain. Yeah, and already it's really starting to pop into the scene. Beautiful. Okay, I like how that's really sticking out now. Okay, cool. So we're looking pretty good. Again, I think because we've got all this light coming through and it's still quite bright in the foreground, I think I'm gonna add another gradient mask once it catches up, and I'm gonna decrease the exposure just again. It's really slow. I'm sorry about that. Here we go. Just decrease the exposure just to how we want it. And we'll bring back the whites just to allow the brightness come through in the scene. There we go. So now we're not drawn away from the scene. We're more following towards where the subject is looking. Okay, so now one thing also I want to do to the light, because we got all this glow in here, we have to be careful not to take away from the subject. So one thing we can do to add more glow and light into this subject is to do as follows. I love to use a brush, and to up the exposure, probably 20 again, but the opposite direction, and add some clarity this time, maybe up 20. And I'm just going to brush from where the light is going into the subject, into all the common points of interest, as if it's like this beautiful burst of light that's just come through the scene. And if you have the feather to 50, and don't make it too harsh and just do it in simple strokes, one by one, you're never going to make it too obvious and no one's ever going to know. I haven't really seen any other photographers do this before, so let me know if you kind of heard of this idea before, but something I stumbled across and found really useful, so I hope you can find it useful too when you play with it. But yeah, I think we're really starting to make it pop now because we've got this haziness and now we're just adding in this little bit of extra clarity through where we want it to. Okay, so that's looking pretty good, I think. I had an idea about one thing, but I've kind of forgotten it now. But anyway, it's looking pretty good. I think to add a bit more depth, some little cheeky little tip that you can use sometimes is just adding clarity. Just literally just pop it in there more, and you're separating the blacks from the whites, and you're making it more of a deeper image once again. So here we are. It's looking pretty good now. And now, same with dehaze sometimes and clarity. Okay, and the curves. This is the last thing that I like to do sometimes is to add lights, just to really increase into that glow. Sometimes it can be really harsh, so we've got to be careful of that. And bring down the blacks to counteract it. Normally it's between 3 and 10, so you don't normally do a lot to it. Okay, and now up the shadows, just to take away from those harshness of those blacks. And the white is now really harsh, so I think we can take off the edge. Definitely want to take off the edge just by dropping the highlights there. Okay, I think probably not too much. Once it catches up. It's a bit of a slow laptop, I'm sorry, it's all I can afford whilst I'm traveling. Okay, so yeah, now we've got a pretty cool scene. So I think I can clean it up. I'm just going to show you what I do in Photoshop just to finish off. But this is the essence of it. If you want to know how to get this glowy, dreamy look, you can either decrease the clarity just over in the basics, or you can get these big masks going through the areas where you want and drop the clarity lots, really, like all the way almost, and dehaze a bit, and then bring back the clarity to the places that you want, i.e., the subject or the elements that are adding layers to the photo. One last thing I'm going to add to the glow. Sometimes, if you want to add to the white horses in here, the white water in the sea, adding a bit of a bright glow to that can really help that stick out too. I probably want to desaturate that a bit too, but because of the blues in there. I think because I don't want to waste your time, I'm just going to go straight to Photoshop. I think it's a pretty good photo as it is. So edit in Photoshop. So just the final little touches really. So what we want to do, you'll be amazed at how much difference this actually makes. I'm going to zoom in just so we can see the photo properly. H the hand to get you in the place, and then Control J to make a new layer. Now you'll be amazed at how just cleaning up these simple little parts of a photo, so all these little spots and stuff that draw you away from the subject, cleaning up those can really improve the image. It can really take away the distractions, and the viewer just knows exactly where to look then. So I'm just going to press J and get onto the spot healing brush tool. Pretty much just go over all of the bits that are kind of just not very comfortable in there. I think in image more is something that you feel more so than you look, really. So you kind of just go off bits that just don't sit right in the photo, that make you feel not right, and just go over them and delete all these bits. It's going to take a little while. Be careful with the shadow. If you've got shadows, you don't want to just look like anything really awkward or uncomfortable. So just make sure you're quite happy with just deleting and going back over Control Z until you're really happy with the shadows and that it looks natural. The whole essence of photography editing isn't taken away from the naturalness of it. It's not about like just making something out of it. That's not necessarily a photo. Then I guess that's more just a piece of art. Like, what's the difference between that and a painting? So I guess you're just trying to accentuate what you have and really bring those to life. And that's the essence of what good photo editing is. Just not bringing too much, taking away anything that's not good in the photo and adding what you want, what story you want to tell. So yeah, just any little bits that are kind of dark spots or white spots that really draw you away from the image and away from the person, and you have a cleaner photo. So Control 0 to zoom back out, and if I press the eye on, off, on, off, and we've not taken a lot, but you can kind of see how you're just no longer focusing so much on the sand now. Actually, wait, where did that come from? Hang on. Just gonna clean up these. Too busy talking. So yeah, you don't need to get all of it. Of course, you want to keep the texture and that kind of natural feel to the scene, but you definitely want to make it just as clean as you can, just so the viewer knows exactly where they should be looking. Okay, so just a cleaner image. And now, one last one, Control J, next layer, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And there's more you can add to these, but just to make it simple, again, just because we're adding to that glowy, hazy look, I think we're going to bring it down to maybe 15. So we've definitely got quite a bit of a glow in there. If you take it on and off, on and off, on, you can see that glow in there, which is really nice. But like we said with the masks, that covers all of it. So what we want to do is get a layer mask here. You just click it and make sure this is on black and press B for brush. So now black means you're taking away. So you'll see in this little mask here, the little black areas where you're taking it away from the overall mask. And we're just going to brush over all the important parts of the scene just so we can brush out that mask. So that means everything else is going to add that extra hazy kind of glowy look, which kind of adds that dreamy effect that we are hoping for. And it's just going to make it more sharper against the harsher kind of part of the scene. Sharper against the more glowy part of the scene. So it just makes it pop out more. So just like that, it kind of makes it pop out a lot more. I think we're going to add to the edges of the shadows too, because that's going to pop. Brilliant. Okay, so off, on, off, on. You see that the subject's not changing so much now, but we have that glow coming off from this edge here. Just keep an eye. Okay, great. So Control S to save. And I think we'll leave it there, really. I think you've got the gist of it. One last thing I would change to the photo is definitely using a mask. Sorry, I'll do it now just to show you, because I'm here. I regret it if I don't. I think it's quite a useful one because you see these blues in the water. Like, normally that's not natural. You don't see that normally. So once we get this new one come through, normally you want to make all the adjustments before Photoshop because you can decrease the quality. But oops. Okay, so K for a brush. I just want to go over the white horses in this water, and I want to decrease the saturation. Take away those blues. Probably quite a bit because you don't really need the blues in there. It's just not natural. And I guess we'll see about the rest. I think I probably want to increase the clarity as well just to make it pop. I think that's too much. Okay. Great. So now you can see less blues in there, which is a lot nicer. I think sometimes you can go the other way just to counteract it. Probably want to bring the whites into there just to make it pop more. Probably a bit of contrast again if you're increasing the whites or the exposure. Probably think about using a little bit of contrast just to bring back those blacks so you're not taking it all away, and a bit more clarity just to help it pop because we've taken the clarity away from everything. So it'd be good just to allow these things just to pop to add layers to the scene. So great. I think here we are. I think we have pretty good finished image. You've seen how if I reset this one here. Yeah, cool. So we've got this kind of like harsh. You can see the edges around here. It's just sharp, and it's a beautiful bright scene, and just all these distractions. So now in this new scene, we've added the long masks here, adding in the area, taking away all that clarity, adding dehaze, and just taking away that harsh edge of all those things. So you're just adding in that beautiful glow with the declarity. And then with masks, we've brought back in the clarity to draw your eye to the subject. And yeah, I think it gives a lovely, bright, glowy scene. And one day I'll take you out into one of my shoots, and I'll show you how I kind of photograph these scenes, how I expose it properly, how I look for these scenes. But yeah, definitely just look for something that's nice and bright and beautiful, and play around. Just water's amazing to play with. The sky, edges of the sky with mountains, and just look at these times at like sunset, sunrise time, and you can get some really beautiful scenes out of it, which really create this sense of awe, which I love in photos. It's for me, it makes me feel inspired to be outdoors. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the photo. I hope you enjoyed the edit, and I hope you learned a lot from it. So that really gives you a good deep dive into how I like to edit my photos. So I hope you found that useful, and stay tuned because I've got a lot more of these to come, and a whole bunch of ideas I want to try with this channel. So I hope you find it all useful and inspiring. So thank you, and have a great day.